There is no substitute to make you better for running than just running. Just running, putting the miles in. And it's, and I've had multiple people say it. There's people, if they're watching this, they'll be like, I've been saying that to them forever. And it's like, right. But I'm trying to find like some hack, but there is no hack. It doesn't exist.
Everyone tries to find that magic bullet or that, you know, magic pill or the magic pair of shoes or whatever it is.
Yeah. That's like human psychology, right?
Yeah, like the guy who
people would rather try to take a pill that's going to make them a better runner than actually go out and run.
That's all it is. And it's hours on the treadmill, or it's hours, kilometers in running, or it's practicing good sleep night after night. And, you know, people are like, I can't quiet my mind. I'm like, well, you haven't tried to quiet your mind.
I love that.
And, or, you know, have you practiced box breathing? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like just things like that. And I've only just started picking up box breathing because my coach brought it up to me because my sleep's not great. And it's just, and honestly, like
even as you say that, I'm like taking a deep breath.
Right. And you're like reminded to breathe. And that's literally like the basics. It's just breathe, you know? And I think if we can quiet our minds for that 30 seconds, you know, even before we try to fall asleep or once in a day when things get overwhelming, but that's like literally breathing is the basic of the basics. And people forget that that's all you need.
Alyssa Coppolino, thank you so much for coming in. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you, because I know that you have a very exciting background in the fitness world. And the way that you and I got connected is through Derek May. When I had him here on the podcast, he gave you a huge shout out, which spiked, I think, a lot of people's interest and my interest, and that kind of got us in a conversation. So I'm super excited to have you here today. And I know you've helped him through his journey, and he said that you're an integral part in pretty well his fitness life-changing journey. So super excited to kind of like hear more of your story.
Totally.
And how you've been able to inspire some people throughout your journey. So Alyssa.
I mean, I would say exciting maybe for you. I mean, it's just life for me.
Right.
But no, it's, I keep forgetting, like we were saying earlier, I keep forgetting how small of a city and this tends to be. So everyone knows everyone. So yeah, no, I've been coaching Derek. He approached me. I know he is incredibly generous with his time, his money, his word. And he does like to spread his love kind of around where he can to local people, less privileged, everything. He just loves to put his stamp kind of on things because he's such a positive, outgoing, fun guy. There's nothing, like, he's awesome.
He is.
He's great.
He's very fun to be around.
And I think a lot of his story and a lot of his struggles also inspires a lot of people too. So, you know, he reached out to me. I think just, we had come across each other several times and, you know, made friends over at the gym at Afterburn there. And, one day he was just like, I think I need your help. And I was like, I am here to help. And so, you know, he says so many nice things about me. You know, things like, he's like, she hijacked my DNA and blah, blah, blah. I just have a different take on training, and that's all it is. And sometimes when you put down some money on a program, you're a little bit more invested than just gathering something off the internet or gathering from a friend who gave you a free program that they paid for like 4 years ago. So
100%.
Just having someone kind of like take the reins a little bit and show up for you in order for you to show up for yourself. And that's what he's done. And he's you know, like highs and lows, obviously, through the whole thing. You know, and so actually I just updated his program for next week. We're going to give him a bit of a deload. He's feeling, I think that shoulder season struggle that everyone kind of has where it's like, it's darker earlier and all of it. So we're going to pull him back just a little bit.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you're even saying how like the seasons affect people's kind of like energy levels and stuff too, right? Because that's something that I notice. And I used to find my energy levels do start to dip around this time of year. And like, it would almost make me a little bit like, I'm like, why am I not as energized? And I'd start to think like, am I getting depressed? But it's just like, it's actually seasonal. Like our energies, I find, and I don't know if you find this, but I find it is seasonal where like, and I don't know if it's like we're like flowers, where if I get more sun, I got more energy, or what the deal is.
That's exactly it, though.
But it's like when it does start to get darker out a little bit earlier, I find I think it's based off our circadian rhythm. You just start to get tired because that's the natural cycle of what's going on around you. And then you start to see leaves falling off trees. And then that's that season of change. And this season always has me very like, deep in thought where I'm trying to think, what can I change in what I'm doing in life? And a lot of it comes down to business, because that's a lot of my life. And I'm thinking, what can I change in my business and the way that I'm marketing? What can I change to be better? And then I find this time's almost like a reflection time. But right now I'm trying to stay on a good fitness track. I'm trying to stay consistent, because it's easy to fall off this time of year.
It's harder.
And kind of want to relax.
It's darker.
Right. And like your body probably wants to start like packing on fat because it's starting to get cold.
You want to start hibernating.
Start hibernating, start getting munchies and stuff. So it's fascinating. So it's fascinating that you kind of mentioned that too. And you said your training style is different. I want to hear more about the way that kind of you look at your training, but then also how you train people too.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's different per se. I think I am of the mindset of keep it simple, stupid. So the KISS.
Me too.
And it's for everything.
Simplicity
Someone's
for success.
already done it, probably better. And so why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? Right. So I'm kind of, people always try to do more than they need to, or try to find a cool twist. And I don't, memory trick or muscle tricking, whatever they call it, confusion. And I think that's silly. And I think just going back to the basics for everything.
I love
right.
That you said
and
that.
and it's even for business, right? It's like, I don't need all these crazy apps and things if I just write things down on a paper and pen on a piece, on a piece of paper in front of me, and I can see all my tasks, right? Things like that. It doesn't need to be so high tech, so integrative. It just needs to be simple. And I think, especially when business and life moves so quickly right now, I think it's best just to step back and not make anything more challenging for yourself. And like you said, now that the seasons are changing, it's a little harder to get the motivation. We don't have the vitamin D, from the sun as much anymore. So we need to, practice proper, sleep habits and sleep hygiene and, eating proper and keeping our body nourished and exercise, just so that we have those basic functions to be able to think clearly and not have the fog, so that we can, complete a day's work, right? And not be so bogged down by everything. So I think just the way I train people is just that. It's just, what are your weak points? What do you suck at? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And then let's just break it down from there. If you want to get better at deadlifting, awesome. If you want to get better at balance, cool. We'll throw some things in there to help your balance, right? If you're, in geriatric, age, then you do that. I don't think it needs to be, not everyone needs to be Olympic overhead lifting. Not everyone needs to be balancing on a Bosu ball, doing stuff like that. Just like, if you figure out what your goals are, then that's what you need to work at. You don't need to be changing things all the time. So I think just keeping it simple is sort of I go back to that old school bodybuilding.
But I mean, keeping it simple, it sounds simple, but that is like the most prolific thing that a lot of high performing individuals talk about. They talk about mastering the basics.
Exactly it.
Keeping it simple, mastering the basics. Don't get bored with the basics. It's like, I just got back from a conference in Nashville and I was listening to a guy who was Kobe Bryant's mindset coach. Yeah. And
what's his name again?
Alan Stein Jr.
Okay, Alan Stein. There was another guy who wrote a book.
Alan Stein Jr. was the one that I seen, and that he was talking about how he had the opportunity to go and kind of shadow the Lakers at the time when Kobe Bryant was playing for them. And so one thing that he asked, so he went up to Kobe, he said, "You're the best basketball player in the world. Would it be okay if I came and watched one of your practices to see like what you're doing that makes you so great?" He said, "Absolutely." He said, and he's like, "I'll be there at 4." And he was looking at the calendar and he was going, "Well, 4:30, he's got something going on there. How's he going to make that work?" And he said, no, 4 a.m. He's like, okay, 4 a.m. So then Alan shows up that next morning at 3:30 to, to pay the respect to Kobe, to say like, I'm here early, and he wanted to be there first. Yeah. But the lights on the gym were already on, and Kobe's already training.
I've heard so many of these interview stories, like
he's
watching
already
motivational
practicing
YouTube stuff. Oh,
right. So then he says to him, after the practice, because he was like, he didn't do anything that I don't teach my high school students. And then he asked him, he said, like, "You're the best basketball player in the world. Yeah. What's the secret here? Like, you didn't do anything that's prolific while you were training and practicing. Like, what is it?" And he said, he's like, "That's the difference between me and most people. I don't get bored with the basics." And it's like, is that ever nice to hear? Yeah. That was so nice to hear, because it's like so many people are trying to reinvent, like, what's the hack? What's the hack I can do?
Well, that's it.
And it's just like, well, maybe there is no hack. And it's even, I fall a culprit to this, like with running. Yeah. So I've ran 4 marathons in the last year.
Good for you.
my first time was my best. And then they started getting worse and worse and worse because I'm trying to like hack it. I'm like, now that I've done it, I feel like I have the experience and I can hack it.
Yep.
But there is no substitute to make you better for running than just running. Just running, putting the miles in. And it's, and I've had multiple people say it. There's people, if they're watching this, they'll be like, I've been saying that to them forever. And it's like, right. But I'm trying to find like some hack, but there is no hack. It doesn't exist.
Everyone tries to find that magic bullet or that, you know, magic pill or the magic pair of shoes or whatever it is.
Yeah. That's like human psychology, right?
Yeah, like the guy who
people
has
would rather try to take a pill that's going to make them a better runner than actually go out and run.
That's it. And we're all, I think, we're all susceptible and guilty of trying to find those shortcuts.
Yeah.
But if you look at who the best people in the world are, like, again, Kobe Bryant.
There's no shortcuts.
Or that book, Outliers.
Right?
By I think they're the New York Times author. He's got big hair.
Okay.
His name will come to me during this.
Oh, no. I know exactly who you're talking about. Outliers. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's 10,000 hours or 10, you know what I mean?
The Tipping Point. He also wrote The Tipping Point because I read his book. I read The Tipping Point.
Outliers is just a bunch of
I may have Outliers
stories.
sitting around here.
It's great. And I read it like years ago.
I want to say Seth Godin, but it's not Seth Godin.
No. Hell no. It'll come up to me later. And it's about, you know, putting in the time and the practice and the hours. So 10,000 hours. It's not the studied time, but like that's a lot of hours. And I'm sure he just would free throw, you know, like constantly. And that's all it is. And it's hours on the treadmill, or it's kilometers in running, or it's practicing good sleep night after night. And, you know, people are like, I can't quiet my mind. I'm like, well, you haven't tried to quiet your mind.
I love that.
And, or, you know, have you practiced box breathing? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like just things like that. And I've only just started picking up box breathing because my coach brought it up to me because my sleep's not great. And it's just, and honestly, like
even as you say that, I'm like taking a deep breath.
Right. And you're like reminded to breathe. And that's literally like the basics. It's just breathe, you know? And I think if we can quiet our minds for that 30 seconds, you know, even before we try to fall asleep or once in a day when things get overwhelming, but that's like literally breathing is the basic of the basics. And people forget that that's all you need. Something
I think that would give people a ton of value is talking about sleep hygiene. You were talking about sleep hygiene. And this is something that I've only recently even started diving into, like the last, let's say 3 to 4 years. So I started doing something where I taped my mouth at night. So I wasn't mouth breathing because I don't know if I feel like I probably had a high tendency to breathe through my mouth while I was sleeping.
Right.
So I started doing this taping thing, which I thought was weird at first, but it's like, it actually started giving me like, I felt more rejuvenated when I woke up in the morning. Yeah. And then starting to read things on like, you should be sleeping on your back. And I'm the worst for this too, because like I'm all over. I'm like, right. Like a pretzel.
Yeah.
Like and then you wake up like, why is my neck sore?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like all contorted in bed. So then it's like, actually figure like, because a lot of this stuff, people probably will never even look up or research because it's like, I know how to sleep. I do it every night.
I do it every night.
Right, I do it every night. It's like, yeah, but are you doing it right?
Yeah.
And can we optimize that? Because if it's something you're doing every single day, maybe if you optimize it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% better, what could that do for the rest of your life? What impact could that have on your life? So what's some tips that you have for sleep hygiene?
I think the biggest one, and everyone is not going to do it, is shutting down the screens at least an hour before you want to fall asleep.
Love it. Yeah.
That's the easiest. Pick up a book. I'm guilty of not doing that. My boyfriend and I watch TV up until like I'm like, and then we go to bed. But like I think that's the biggest one.
And is that the light? Is that circadian rhythm that we're talking about there?
Yeah.
So starting to program the circadian rhythm to realize that with the lack of light, and a lot of the light that we have is blue light, right?
Yeah, and it's just that overstimulation again, because we're living in a super fast-paced society these days, right? Everything's right here at the edge of our fingertips, right? And again, it's keeping your brain on that constant awareness and alertness, and I think you just need to shut her down.
100%. Yeah. And there is that constant stimulation when you're scrolling through your phone, and someone like me, like,
do you ever catch yourself just doing it and being like, I'm not even looking at the stuff I'm looking at?
Oh, 100%. It's like, what am I looking for? It's like I'm looking for the end of Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the end of it, but it doesn't exist.
And I get mad at myself and I go, oh my God. And I go and I plug my phone in and I keep my phone in a different room when I plug it in at night.
Me too.
It shuts. I have my do not disturb on at like 9 p.m.
Yep.
And that's everything. Everything goes off. No one can access me.
That's so fair. And that's super fair.
I think I have my mom.
Right.
And she's in a different province, so it's not like she could help me or I could help her if anything were to happen.
100%, right? Like, and I do the same thing too. And I'm like, that's fair, because at a certain time you have to call the day yours. Like,
yes.
you know, it's like, you know, unless there's an absolute emergency, then
it's another boundary.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, even that's important for kind of winding down at the end of the day. And I do the same thing too. So we sleep with the phones here in the living room and the bedroom's upstairs.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's
so that's the best. 100%.
I honestly think, and this might sound like tin hatty, but like I think it does emit some sort of frequency that we're probably not necessarily hearing. So
100%.
I do believe that
in order to stay connected to an antenna, right? It has to be radiating some type of frequency.
Yeah.
For
so
sure.
I do believe that disrupts some things, but another thing is, shutting it down. I find if I had my way, I would fall asleep at like 6 p.m. and wake up. Like I would fall asleep with the sun and wake up with the sun.
Right.
That would be my ideal. Like as soon as the sun go down, I'm like, oh, like it's time. Right. And I mean, like I use, like I said before, I'm not a great sleeper. I find I fall asleep. I don't necessarily tend to stay asleep. So looking at my, like, my watches, you know, it gives you all the graphs and stuff like that.
Do you sleep with your watch on?
I do.
What do you have for a watch?
Just an Apple Watch.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But I find the battery's not good enough to
this
to
one's
last.
like almost like 4 years old. So I feel like I'm like, what am I at right now?
You sleep with this on, so then you must charge it at some point throughout the day.
If I like go to the gym and have a shower. It charges
pretty quick.
Yeah, I find they charge really quick.
They do charge quick. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so like my rhythms, it says I'm up like 18 times in a night.
Okay.
Right. So of like,
and there's sleep cycles too, right?
Yeah,
so that's
like
a whole other thing that I've learned about.
And I don't know too
sleep.
much about it, but like your core and your deep obviously are the ones that you want to be in.
Like the REM sleep, right? That's the
which REM happens earlier in your sleep, and then it's mostly core. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I need to know a little bit more about it, but.
And then yes, I thought REM was the last cycle, but I could be very wrong too.
I could also be wrong. I don't know. I don't study it. But
maybe somebody could tell us in the comments if.
Keeping the lights on. Yeah, please. Anyone? We're probably totally off. I think another one is even as simple as like keeping your sheets clean, which might sound right, like a no-brainer, but I think just like having proper like
I think that's a no-brainer
hygiene.
For a lot of women. I think for a lot of possibly single men, like I was for a while.
A must.
I was like, oh no, it's fine. There's no way this is dirty. It's 2 months old. There's no way it's dirty.
It smells fine. Yeah.
But like, no, exactly. A lot of these little things that seem like common sense.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of wanted to bring up the sleeping. And then because the better you sleep, the more energy that you're then going to have to wake up and put a good workout in.
Yeah.
To give your best throughout the day. And then you sleep, turn the lights off, turn all of the screens off. And what's your thoughts on like breathing? So then we talked about breathing too.
Yeah.
And then like, so the box breathing, something that I don't really even pay attention to when I'm working out. I don't pay attention to how I'm breathing, because when I'm working out, that's the nice part about working out is nothing else is even being processed in my brain except just getting that weight up. Yeah. Because it's like, if I don't focus on this, then I could just die. Yeah. So I just need to focus on this movement.
If I don't, I will end up on the floor. No, yeah. I remember when I first started working out, I was like, this is like very first started working out. And I was like, I'm like, oh my God, my head hurts. I have a splitting headache during my workouts and after workouts. It's because the guy was having me at the time. He's like, it's because you're not breathing.
Right. Like oh, shit. Some people hold their breath.
And I'm like,
right. Yeah. Some people hold their, some people hold their breath while they're doing stuff.
Yeah. So that takes practice, right?
It takes practice. And then also having like a level of not caring what other people think, because sometimes it can sound funny when you're breathing, right?
Huge.
Sounds like
it's best just to have noise canceling headphones in.
100%. Because everybody breathes a bit differently, right? There's some people that are like pistons, like like everybody makes a different sound. Everybody makes a different sound, right?
Yeah.
And then some people like everybody like everybody's got a different exhale. It kind of feels weird, but it's like that's just important. And you're at the gym, you're working out. Who cares? Who cares?
And it's easy for us to say who cares, because we might be more confident than the next person in the gym. But the amount of people who have been like, oh, I don't want to train where other people are, or I don't want to, and I go, slow down. No one cares.
No one cares.
Like respectfully, no one cares about what you are doing. Like, or I'll say like, this, like, respectfully, no one cares about you.
No, right. And that's liberating. It's so liberating when you actually, when you actually think about that.
When you hit 30, you start to realize that who fucking cares?
Everybody's stuck in their own head thinking about, why does everybody think about me?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, nobody's actually thinking about me because everybody's thinking, what does everybody think about me?
Yeah. And like, and I try
and then the people that aren't thinking about you are so self-confident that it's like they realize everybody's just people.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
Everyone has their insecurities.
It is
someone might be
fine.
staring at you because they're like, hey, that's interesting. Or like, hey, I like her shirt. Or like anything.
And that's a big reason some people won't even do stuff like this, right?
No.
They're like, oh, well, what if I say something stupid? It's like, there's a high chance that I'm going to say something stupid every time the camera turns on.
And it doesn't
every
matter.
single time.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Every time there's a high chance I will say something stupid. But it's like, that's part of being a human.
Yeah.
We're not robots. We're not going around
like,
just
this is my first time literally in this second, and it's the first time of you in this second. Like, we're only just moving through, just trying our best.
Everybody's doing their best.
Yeah.
No, and that's actually a really good point. And a good kind of like tidbit for people is like people that are concerned about other people or concerned about going to the gym. Actually, me and my buddy were talking about that, about how it can be hard for some people just to show up to the gym because they're like, well, what is everybody going to think when I walk in? And I don't know what to do when I get there.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people that are there actually don't know what they're doing. And a lot of people are just doing their best. It's the same as going through life. Like just show up, and then you being there, you learn. Something that's funny about me going to a gym is I actually would rather work out with other people around because I get competitive with people that aren't even looking at me. I'm like, oh, that guy's like in really good shape. Like, I want to
match it.
It's like inspiring. I find like inspiration. Or I'll find like a really old guy that's there training. And it's like, that's inspiring.
That's cool.
This is inspiring. Yeah. And it's like, I want to be that. And then, so I work way better in like a group because I'll get like competitive in my mind, but it's not like unhealthy. I'm not like being mean to people or anything. I'm just like, I want that other bit of people around working out. And I always like seeing somebody stronger than me because that's motivation.
Yeah. That I agree with. Like we were saying earlier, I don't love the Globo gyms because I find a lot of people like a fit for less. I find that people, and this is just from my observation, that they're going just to like get the selfie or to try out the new leggings, Gymshark leggings that they're wearing. And that's cool.
What's that purple one? What's the one that's like all
Planet
purple?
Fitness.
Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
Where like they have like a alarm that goes off if you drop a weight or something.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's so funny. That one is such a hypocrisy because it's like, we're no judgment zone, but you're literally judging people.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Right. If somebody like, if someone's just really into the groove. And,
and again, grunting because you're under, 225 of a bench.
Some people just grunt when they breathe, right? That's the noise they're making when they're working out.
That's right. Don't be judgy.
Right.
Right. So
noise canceling headphones.
That's it. That's the key. That's the key. But I just find that people like, I want to be, you're totally right. I like to be surrounded by people who are there for the intent of working out, not the socializing. No. Because I truly don't.
That's part of the problem too. Yeah. Because you can end up talking and going to the same gym for so long.
Yep.
You talk
and then you start seeing,
I see people all the time.
Bruce, who's been there since the dawn of time, and he does the exact same workout every day for the last 30 years. Right. And like, I want the people who are, and good for him. That's his routine. That'll be me when I'm 70.
Right.
I'll just be going in and just doing it.
Right.
But like right now, I have a full intention behind every one of my workouts, and I like to be around those who are also intentionally working out.
I really like that we're talking about that now. How important is mind-body connection when you're working out?
Oh, extremely. And that's why I think doing any one of those multi-movements is not, for the beginner, is not useful. Like throwing someone who's never lifted a weight into CrossFit, bad idea.
I'm so glad you said that. Me and my girlfriend were just talking about that, and we just had that exact conversation.
That's funny.
That's super cool.
Or like first person who's just like, I just want to lose like 15 pounds. Cool. Here's some snatches. Do them. Overhead cleans, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's dumb.
You're gonna hurt someone.
That's dumb.
Someone's gonna get hurt doing that, right?
So for one, CrossFit is very powerlifting. They call it functional, but it's like powerlifting, plyometric, like Olympic lifting, which is what you see in the Olympics, right? Your snatch clean, your snatch jerk,
right?
All that kind of stuff. Those are incredibly skill intensive. And unless you have been to the Olympics, I don't want you teaching someone who's barely a year into their own fitness weight loss journey.
Right.
Right. I did CrossFit for about 3 months after I went to the Olympia. I was like, if I have to do a bicep curl, I'm going to cry. So I needed to step away from the sport. So I went and did CrossFit for like 3 months back in Kitchener. And it was fun. I'm still competitive. So it was that like everyone's there to like beat a time or beat a PR. And it was great. But like never did I properly actually get maybe the actual proper skill direction to be able to do any of it.
Right.
Now I'm different.
Which is the most important part,
well,
right?
That's before you start throwing plates on, maybe figure out where your limbs are in space.
Right. In the form of how I should be doing this.
It's just too skill intensive.
Yeah.
Because those kids who are in the Olympics, and I'll say kids because they're under the age of 20, really.
Okay.
They've been like, those Eastern Bloc kids, they've been doing it since they were 3 and 4 years old, from like old Russian dudes or, Eastern Bloc dudes who have also been doing it for decades. And so I think it's crazy to me that anyone steps outside and tries to like, I honestly think you should spend a year just learning how to move the barbell properly before you start doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, cause when you first start working out, especially if you've never done anything that's physically intensive before, you almost need to develop the muscles and the fibers to be able to do a lot of those motions.
Yeah.
These quick jerks. And I don't even like doing them now.
No.
I've been working out for a long time and I still look at those going, that's just, I don't know if it's worth the ROI. I don't know if it's worth it.
Yep.
Because it's like, there's a high chance. And I've actually read like, as soon as you have weight over your shoulders, there's the risk of injury for your shoulders goes up by like 80%.
Of course.
As soon as you're up here.
And think about
as soon as you're doing that.
And think about the way people are built right now.
Yeah, everybody.
Right? And so they've
Not
got
much
underdeveloped back, underdeveloped front delt. And I just think it's too much.
Yeah,
It's
no,
too
absolutely.
much.
So then let's say we were trying to point people maybe in a direction. There's some people watching this that never have worked out or want to get into working out. Then the best advice for them is like, so just kind of going to the gym and probably just getting some of the regular muscle fibers then, like just like
Get
start
a
doing
base.
Yeah,
Just get
exactly.
a base,
Like
right?
a base. So just start
And I
to
honestly
do the
think,
basics.
Yeah, literally just start doing the basics. And I think, like I said, I joke, but like know where your limbs are. Like when you're doing a walking lunge, like you see some people doing walking lunges, right? Start out with stationary lunges. Like why get into something that you're kind of tipsy topsy all over the place? Just like keep it simple. Goes right back to it, right? So
I want to talk about actually, so you mentioned a second ago some of the major competitions you've done.
Yeah.
You've are you involved in like international bodybuilding?
I am.
Right. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you compete on the international bodybuilding stage.
Yes.
Talk to me about that because I know nothing about it.
We'll start from the basics.
Yeah.
So I started competing. So even further before that, I played varsity soccer for my university back in Kitchener-Waterloo for Wilfrid Laurier.
It's a strong cardio base.
Yeah. And just like an interest and knowing where my body is, right?
Right.
It's kind of like, football where you're this and that and you're forward and you're backward. So all of it. So I basically only played soccer. My family was a soccer family. We didn't do hockey, anything like that. I think I tried ball hockey once, didn't like it. Track and field, didn't like it. Soccer. So soccer was a sport. And so up until the end of university was just doing that. And then university ended. And actually, fun fact, I was cut my very last year. I was only one of 2 veterans cut that year.
No
The
way.
coach didn't like me.
Okay.
I'm really expressive with my facial movements, and I guess I was too expressive with a lot of what he was doing. I thought he was a piece of shit.
Okay.
But I can say that now because it was many years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, you can say whatever you want.
Anyway, yeah. I'm several provinces away. Anyway, so I was still too competitive to stop doing anything, and I wasn't quite ready for like the beer league. So the guy I was dating at the time, he was into strongman actually. Okay. And so that's kind of how I started with like, at the time CrossFit was just coming up and I started a program called Joe DeFranco. And it was like, I think it was the West Side for Skinny Bastards is what his programming was called.
Okay. Yep.
So loosely based on the infamous West Side Barbell Gym out of Ohio.
Okay.
In the United States. That along with a little bit of, so what the program kind of entailed was building up to like a heavy repetitions. So more powerlifting based, but then also there was sort of like a dynamic part to it. So box jumps, single leg stuff.
Okay.
Bilateral, unilateral stuff. So it was all, I think it was mostly designed for like football players at the time, right?
Okay.
And so it was just to help build the skinny bastard into more of a force. And so that's kind of the program that I started on. And it was awesome. It was wicked so this is when I was probably like 18, 19.
Okay.
So sort of the tail end of university. And then he was doing strongman. So of course I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm going to do strongman too. And so I started like.
And the strongman's like cars and like, it's
cars
like very
and like
intense
Atlas
stuff.
stones and
Right.
like
Those,
the
those huge,
yoke
those
and,
Atlas stones.
Yeah. And so like heavy shit.
Yeah.
And so I started lifting heavy and like, weightlifting and lifting weights for girls wasn't as prolific as it is now. And it also wasn't taboo. It was not really anything. Right. So I didn't have like both sides, like the dichotomy of like, you're going to lift weights and you're going to look like a boy, or like, don't lift weights.
There just wasn't much attention on it at
all. Because we're cardio
right?
bunnies. There was nothing. Right. So I didn't have any inspiration to do it. I was just like, this is fun. And so then I was kind of doing that, more aiming towards like a powerlifting side because there was girls in powerlifting. Again, I didn't have any influences. But then I went to a show in Stratford, Ontario to watch a friend compete, and that was the first time I'd ever been to a bodybuilding show. And I was like, that's cool. The women were ripped. Right? Jacked. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, we're taking a slight detour here. So I started to focus on the aesthetics rather than any sort of PRs or, personal bests. And I just focused on symmetry and getting strong and getting a little bit bigger. And so that was back in 2009.
Okay. 2009.
Yeah.
And that's a huge self-development journey too, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because it's like, as you start to look better, you start to feel better. And then that kind of like, and then you almost get addicted to that feeling, right? That becomes an addictive feeling of, I want to keep feeling good. I want to keep getting better. And then when you're in these hyper-competitive environments where you're seeing other people on stage and then now you're competing literally against them. I need to look better than her.
Totally.
And then now, and then that just like any competition can like whirlwind into a whole bunch of like kind of difficulties, but also fun inspirations too, right?
Yeah, there's a dark path and a light path.
100%
on the way to that.
100%. And that's anything competitive, right?
Yes, of course.
Anytime you're competing against other people.
Yep, always. So my first show was I took several years. So 2009, 10, 11, 12. 2012 was my first. So I have 4 years to like build a base, to get stronger, to understand my body really, because learning how you lift, what your weaknesses are, how do you balance them out, what your patterns are, what you're good at, what you're not, like that took 4 years. So people who are jumping into this and being like, I'm going to go do a show, like chill out, like build a base and then hit the stage. Like the stage isn't going anywhere.
Right.
People have been bodybuilding since the dawn of time. Right. So, I mean, the Olympics have been around for since BC.
Since civilization kind of deal, right?
So chill out and just take your time. And so that's my best advice for anyone is just take your time. And so then 2012, I think I did figure, which is like what people normally think of for the girls for bodybuilding. So standing there, do your quarter turns, you're wearing heels. I came last, 4 of 4. Okay. My first show. I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, I got up there. That was great.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
And then the year following, my feedback. So at the end of a show, everyone should always kind of ask the judges, what can I do better? Like, does my tan suck? Do I need to bring up my delts? Whatever. Right. And so this was when women's physique was just starting to come in to the picture. And so everyone probably knows like Dana Lynn Bailey or like Rob Bailey, right? So Dana Lynn Bailey was like the first girl on the internet really to like, man, she's jacked, right? To be a figure that women could look up to in the weight space. And so the division was basically created, I don't want to give her too much credit, but it was created to fit girls in outside of figure who are too big for figure, but not big enough for women's bodybuilding.
Okay.
So there's kind of like, it was like kind of like that in between category.
It's like a hybrid of the two.
Yep, exactly it.
Okay.
So the judges were like, well, you'd probably do okay. I think they were just trying to get people into that division so they could make a money, but that's okay.
Who knows?
It worked.
Who knows?
I moved over into women's physique, and then 2013 did my first women's physique show. I think I did 4th of 12. So middle of the pack, roughly.
Right.
Which is fine. Again,
The top middle.
yeah, which is fine because at that time I wasn't super like, I didn't throw myself into it like I have now. Didn't identify as a competitor. I just lifted weights and that was kind of the end result, which is fine.
Right.
Although I was still too competitive. And so I hated getting spanked.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
So then my next show, at that show I had qualified for, back then it was provincials. So like all the best of Ontario in the top 4 could compete. And I did that show. Worst decision of my life. I was kind of going through like a divorce / horrible breakup at the same time, but I wanted to stay normal and just, power through.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
Stress does bullshit things to your body. And so I got spanked. I looked terrible. I looked like a wet dog on stage. Like the pictures are horrendous. And I'm not afraid to show it because it's such a good example of like when you should and shouldn't do something and like listening to what your body's telling you and the circumstances that you're in. It wasn't the time. Mm-hmm. And
even the fact that you did that though, that says a lot. Even, right when things aren't going great at all, and it's almost like I just was talking to Christian Savoy, who's like who's a fighter, and we talked about that, about how like you can do everything to prepare for a day of, let's say, fighting or or even a show. But chances are, like, nobody wakes up 100% that day. Like, you never. It's actually very rare somebody wakes up and feels 100% on any day.
No.
Right? Like, there's always something that you wake up and you're like, today's like, there's this going on, there's that going on. But then it's kind of like,
it's never the right time for anything.
It's never the right time for anything. And
Yeah.
that was something fascinating because I'm like, even at the highest levels too, right? Like, you have to think like people that we see on stage or that we watch on, like, let's say, fighters or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's like we think that that this is the best version of themselves, but they could wake up and they could be going through a divorce. There could be all this stuff on the back end that nobody knows about.
That's it. And
or they could just get a horrible message right before they go in.
And that's why, like, someone like, Savoy, who ideally that's you're peaking, like the best day he should feel the best, the most hydrated, the most prepared on that day. And it's the same with bodybuilding. Ideally, that's your peak. That is your best look. And that peak only lasts like he's got to time it for like a 9 o'clock fight.
Right.
I've got to time it for a 9 a.m. prejudge.
Right.
Right. And you're
try not to drain your adrenals right before
and everything. And like every second, every morsel that you put into your body, whether that's physical or mental, it matters. And that's why you shut down the social media. You keep only your tight, like 4 people, the least dramatic people around you at that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. I had a shitty coach. He should have pulled the plug a long time ago. I didn't know anything. Right. I didn't really have any sort of mentors in the sport at the time. And it was terrible. And then I not gave up, but I took 2 years off just to we need to collect ourselves. And then I moved to British Columbia, still just practiced and trained and just try to get better. And then that's when I realized how much you had to put into something to be a top contender, not the best, just a top contender.
Right.
Right. And how much effort you actually have to put forth. And so 2015, I won a regional show. That same year, I went and won provincials in British Columbia. And then I won on Canada's. And that's when I got my pro card. And that that took from 2014 to 2017.
Wow. So from 2014, then in 2017, you won in Canada. And then, so what's a pro card?
A pro card, that's International Federation of Bodybuilding.
Wow, that's how you, got into the international level.
Yeah.
So then what was that like? So when you came from winning competitions within Canada, within your country, which is huge. Congratulations, by the way. Yeah. That's absolutely mind-blowing.
But it's a small pool now, and now I'm a top fish in a much bigger pool.
Right? So that's the difference coming from so you're saying Canada's a small pool?
Well, I mean, compared to if you include literally the rest of the world.
Right. Okay. Wow. Wow.
So if one person, me, got that pro card for women's physique on that day in Canada, how many other people are getting their pro cards at each of those contests happening around the world? Right? Like I'm one person.
And then, so how many times did you compete on the international level? And are you still doing that?
Yeah. So once you get your pro card, you're a pro for life.
Cool.
As long as you pay them a fee every year that you want to compete to hold on to that pro. Again, everything's a moneymaker.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I have been competing. So 2017, I got my pro card. In 2018 was my pro debut. So that's when I stepped on a pro stage, a pro level stage in Toronto, and I came 4th. So I came top 5 in Toronto of that pro show.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then now, so you're doing personal training then, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue to talk about the personal training, because it's like, well, who's more qualified than somebody who's competing on an international level? Yeah. So that's something that's kind of like a huge kind of badge of certification, saying like, who's more certified to train somebody than somebody that's literally deemed a professional in doing this?
Who changes? I think what's more impressive, not to like toot my own horn, but it's to take my body from like what I currently look like, which is an off-season look, which is like 30 to 40 pounds heavier than what I look like on stage, and be able to whittle it down and make the necessary adjustments to look different than I did the year before.
Is that part of it too?
Hugely.
You can't show up looking the same every year?
Because I've done that for the last 2 years, and what happened is I got like 15th place and 5th place, right? For these shows.
Like they want to see something new, even though you're the same person.
Well, I've got to catch up with the standard, right?
Okay.
You know, and so like, you know, hockey makes a bunch of trades to be able to beat the Tampa Lightning, right? If you showed up with the exact same players, well, your skill level, like they can only do so much, but every team brings a certain something to be able to beat the top team.
Right.
So I've got to change my body to match the top girls to be in any way competitive.
How far in advance do you know who you're competing against?
I don't until the Monday before the show. And it doesn't matter, really.
True,
because the judges, what I found, so this past year I competed both at the Tampa Pro, and then 2 weeks later I competed in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is the birthplace of Elvis Presley.
Oh, okay, cool. I love Elvis. Look at all the Elvis stuff I have hanging on the walls there.
There you go.
Yeah, I got a bunch of
Everyone's
Elvis stuff.
a fan.
I love him.
So I went and visited that. That was pretty funny.
Everyone's a fan.
And so in Tampa, I stepped on stage. And for me, I take a few shows to like get better, which is annoying because it's expensive to compete.
Right.
So like the Tampa was my first show since September the year before. So a little less than a year. And I came 15th, which is virtually last. They basically stopped counting after 15.
Okay.
As soon as I stepped on stage, you can see the head judge panel, and I was stepped up there, and I knew they did not have eyes for me. They were like shaking their head. They don't care because I was too small. And so I was like, well, that sucks. So I thought I would have been at least like closer to the top 10. That's fine. But I'm over it. Am I?
Right. No. That's that competitive edge in you, and I can hear it when you're talking. There's a competitive drive that you have that you're not going to be able to shake, that just sticks around.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I want to talk about that because there's times where I feel like I have a similar competitive drive, because it's like, why put all your eggs kind of in one basket and do something so passionately? And I like having that all in, all out mentality. Do you find you have an all in, all out mentality?
Yeah.
And that can be right. And that can be a gift or a curse too, depending on where you direct that energy.
Yeah.
And this is something else I was talking to Christian, and then like, this is why I like talking to people that are just like hyper competitive too.
Yeah.
Do you find you have a tyrant in your head? And I ask this because I do. Do you find that there's like a tyrant saying you can do better, you're not doing good enough?
Yes.
Like, and it's just like this like almost exhausting feeling, but at the same time, it's what drives us to do well, and it's what helps us kind of like show up as who we are today.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to.
Yeah.
How do you manage the tyrant inside you that keeps pushing? Do you become friends with it? And I ask you out of like just coming.
You're like, I need help. I need some suggestions.
It's like what, right? Like, what does everybody else do with this? Because not everybody has it, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I like to ask people that do have it.
Mine definitely started when I was playing competitive soccer, just as a kid.
Yeah.
My parents have high expectations. I find I have high expectations for people.
Yeah.
Just in general, just if you want to go do something, try to do it your very best.
Yeah.
And
that can be great as a trainer too, but then it can be overwhelming for people as well.
It's frustrating for me.
Right.
Because I'm like, I know you can do better. I know you can want this more.
Right.
But I digress. But that's the tyrant that comes out. That's the voice that's talking to me. Right. Yeah. And it started as a young kid. I remember like punishing myself.
Right.
If I didn't make a good pass, right? I'm like, well, that was like, why?
You're your worst critic kind of deal.
That was dumb. And I would physically go and like do like push-ups to punish myself. Or I'm like, fine, I'm going to go juggle the ball, 50 times, like just to try to like get your feet together, get your head together. Right. And I saw a sport psychologist briefly.
Okay, cool.
To try to like, get that focus in.
Yeah, what did they say?
Yeah. I don't remember too much. I was quite young when I went and did it. I think as I matured, like, you know what works best for you, and you know how to listen to that voice a little bit better, I think.
100%. Yeah, kind of. But there's still sometimes I'm like, holy smokes, that's being loud right now.
Yeah.
Like, and then I have to like, just remember like, okay, here's what I've done.
Don't be so intense.
Don't be so intense. I'm like, things are going okay.
Yeah.
Like, but like, and then it, like, there is times where it almost like, where it eats me up and then my anxiety levels rise. And I'm like, well, what is going on? Because I'm very happy with where I am in life, but then there's still this like, you can do so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it is like the comparison that we also give, right?
Yeah.
Like comparison is the thief of joy.
It's the thief of joy, right?
Right. And so I think, as like a real estate agent, like I need to sell more. I need to put up myself out more because you're watching someone else do it, but you don't know their circumstances. Maybe they have a whole other ghost team of people doing it, and you're relying on just yourself. And I know for me, I do everything myself, whether it's social media, programs, talking to people. I show up, and but I also pride myself on that.
Me
so
too,
I also try to not compare to what all these other people do, and I have to learn that and understand and give myself grace.
The grace is huge. And actually, me and Derek talked about that, about the grace, having grace with yourself.
Yeah. And so like someone who has maybe 100,000 followers on social media, they probably have a whole other team that's pumping stuff out for them. Yeah. They've either invested or they've got a good setup going. I don't. I have sub 10, right? And I've only just done what I can, with my time to be able to grow that, right? But I also,
and then it's organic to you too, right? And that
I don't want to be disingenuous. I don't want to be fake, right? Yeah. And that's the last thing. The two things that drive me crazy, like the misconceptions that anyone, if they do, and maybe this is just my own fear, is don't think I'm lazy. Don't call me lazy because I'm not lazy. Yeah. And don't think I'm being fake. Because like my face is going to tell it all, my words, my body language. If I don't want to be somewhere, I'm not going to be there. Right. And I hate when people put those misconceptions on me. Yeah. I am not lazy. I am not naturally smart.
I don't know who would ever call you lazy. I think
but just, you know what I mean?
It's
like
very difficult to, like, because this is another thing we were talking about.
Maybe I'm projecting.
It's so walking around and being in good shape, it's almost like a resume to who you are.
It is, because I don't want people to think that I'm that this comes naturally to me.
Right.
That's what I don't want.
You have the genetics for it. Like,
because I can fucking eat. Yeah. I will put away so much food. But the amount of work I have to do to get it off.
Is that must be nice kind of fallacy? There's like, people say, must be nice. Like you're in such good shape.
Your arms are so good.
You're in so good shape. Must be nice to have those genetics. Must be nice to have those.
I don't have any of the genetics.
Right.
Mine's an uphill battle always.
So there's a guy, I'm not sure if you've heard of him. His name's Cameron Haynes. His book's actually sitting right here. Have you heard of Cameron Haynes before?
No.
Okay, so he's a bow hunter and an ultramarathon runner. Oh. And just there was one point where he's running a marathon every day for years, and then that got him on the Joe Rogan podcast because Joe's like, "Who's this guy that's like running a marathon every day?" And also
Joe Rogan's into bow hunting and stuff too.
Well, now he is even more because of him.
Because of him, interesting.
So and like Cameron Hain he'd carry like a rock up a hill, like just like up a mountain.
Atlas.
Like,
yeah.
but like just like this is what he'd like doing because he's like, I like pushing my body. And then a lot of people would look at him and they say, must be nice to be able to just go out and run. Like, must be nice to get paid to do all this. But for the longest time, he's like, I worked a 9 to 5 for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And I showed up an hour early for work and I took a 2-hour lunch to run this marathon.
Yeah.
Like every single day. It's like, he's like, I'm staying late. I'm showing up early so I can do this. So then people say, must be nice.
That's exactly it.
So like he has a whole thing, hashtag must be nice. And like he's got shirts with it and everything. And I'm like, I love that. I just love it because a lot of people do have that attitude of must be nice to be you and be able to just go out and hunt. And it's like, no, like people work for what they have. Nothing comes easy. Nothing's genetics. And like you said, it's easier to sit back and eat fast food. It's easier to say, I'm not going to go to the gym today. I'm going to take a day off and I'm going to have some drinks or I'm going to do this. Or it's like, that's all easy. It's all much easier to do the things that we're not doing.
Yeah. The body's designed to take the path of least resistance.
Right. Comfort.
Right.
Comfort.
It's
right.
Sitting in
to
that
conserve
comfort.
energy. That's the crazy thing. Our body's designed to conserve energy.
Your brain is also designed to get you out of that uncomfortable feeling, right? Like your brain is fight or flight always. So it's going to start making up stuff, you know, to get you out of something that's uncomfortable.
Right.
And like, even when I went through university, I am not naturally smart, but I fucking worked. I even got that little letter, you know, in my second year of university being like, if you don't bring up your marks, we're going to take you off of the soccer team. Right. And so I posted that to wherever my desk was and I hammered away and I got that for 2 years in a row.
Huge.
Now, it wasn't until I went and got testing done to realize that I have a learning disability and like a test taking anxiety that I got the necessary help. And so like I went from like C's and D's to like B's and low A's. So I mean like, that helped.
And having that motivator there every single day, looking at that and just using that as a driver too.
Yeah.
That's huge for a lot of kind of like hyper competitive people too, is what motivates you. And sometimes it's funny. I'm like, I almost get more motivated when people say I can't do something.
Totally. Oh, it fires me up, man.
Right? And like some people are like, that's toxic. That's not good. But it's like, everybody's got, don't tell me what is good. Like what, I'm just telling you what gets me fired up. That gets me fired up. When someone's like, you can't do that. It makes me want to do it even 10 times more.
Yeah, harder.
Then if somebody was like, oh, I believe you can do it. I'm almost like, no, don't say that. I don't even want you to think I can do it. Because I work way better when people think I'm not going to do it.
I want proper feedback. I don't want that toxic positivity that
you
people
can do
like
it. I'm like,
pump
no.
Yeah,
that's not
fucking
fun.
tell me to do better.
Right.
Like, that's what gets me.
Right.
But maybe that goes back to the tyrant that's in our head that.
Probably. And then I think some of that could come from the military, and then some of it could just like, who knows? Like, you know. And then now we're diving into psychological, how you're raised. But it's like, I think a lot of it does come from my background of like military and like kind of just pushing, and then always realizing you can do better. Because like once you push your body to a certain point, that's the cool part, is once you start to push your body to a point where you're like, I didn't think I could do that good. Or I didn't even think I was going to be able to do that. What else can I do that I don't think I can do? Because it's like, you keep blowing through these barriers in your mind, and then you realize that you can keep doing that. So then you're like, oh, this is unlimited if I push hard enough.
In itself too, right?
It is.
To be able to like keep finding that new threshold that you didn't think was there. Like I definitely feel that towards the end of prep, right? Where I'm on like, you know, sub 1,000 calories and, you know, doing 2 hours of cardio a day. And I'm like, oh, I have to do HIIT cardio. So I've got to do like sprints on and off. And like my legs feel like cinder blocks. And like I'm just uncomfortable.
Like lactic acid kind of deal.
Just just everything feels heavy and I'm just uncomfortable. But I'm like, fuck, I got it. Like,
how long is the preparation for a show?
Some people who stay in shape, I do not stay in shape, can do like under 20 weeks, not much less than that. I don't think you'd want to. I like to take. And
you say you don't stay in shape, but but you're not staying in shape is probably significantly in shape to most people, though, right? Is that fair to say?
This could be just me being hard on myself, but I don't think so. I think,
and then it's probably not good to compare you to most people because that's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty true. I'd say I'm pretty average for an athletic person.
Okay.
Does that help? So I like to take a much longer prep. Like I would prefer to do like between 30 and 25 weeks of a slow
30
cut.
and 25 weeks.
So like
that's
half,
like 6 months.
That's like more than half a year.
More
right?
than half a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like my plan from my last show was end of August. And now we're in basically mid-October. So I wanted to take a full year to put on size.
Okay.
And the last several years, I've not taken even like 6 months to do it.
And are you working out every single day when this is going on? Are you a consistent every single day type of
Something
trainer?
every day. Something
like, is that
every
what,
day.
Something every day?
Yeah.
And I guess something that I'm trying to figure out is like, I find the momentum of staying in the routine is so powerful.
That's the
It's
one
so
reason why I can't not do it.
Right. Because as soon as you don't do something, it's just like, for me, it's such a slippery slope.
Yep.
If I just take a day off and then I'm like, oh, well, I didn't work out yesterday, so I won't do tomorrow. But then I'm going to get back into my routine and start tricking yourself in a way.
That's the all or nothing mentality.
It's the all or nothing mentality. I know.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I'd rather stay a little bit damp all the time rather than dry or completely wet.
Right.
Right? I'm like, it's easy just to be kind of damp. So
Right. Yeah. And okay, so then there's something every day.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like, let's say you wake up someday and there's probably so many days where you're just gassed, exhausted, body sore.
Yeah.
Those days, are you still pushing it? Is it worth to push it on the days of exhaustion?
Yeah.
Or is it, because those are the days where you get the results too, right?
Yeah.
There's this
in
crazy.
In a way, I would say on a day that I'm like, my sort of like, my checklist is how are my joints? I'm 36. Like there's some joints that get sore.
Yeah.
Just how are my muscles sore? How did I sleep? And
Yes. Yeah.
and really just like I have to do something. So that'll probably be just active recovery. And whether that's just like a 20-minute walk outside.
Okay, cool.
Just to get some fresh air, take the dog for a walk, do something light. I probably wouldn't go into the gym that day because I don't, if my brain is like, I don't want to go to the gym, then I'll just be like, I'm just going to do it outside. I'm just going to bundle up, put a toque on if it's cold out, and I'm just going to go for a walk, 20 minutes just to do something.
Yeah.
I do have like a walking treadmill at home. So even just like put on the TV, do like something mindless for 20 minutes or so.
Right.
But yeah, I think keeping the routine is like the number one. And as soon as you let yourself, and in fact, the
power of momentum is so huge.
So important. And in fact, like my coach pulled back a little bit of my training because there is something that like your body's now overstressed, right? You're going to hold a little bit more water, inflammation. You're going to be a little bit more sore if your lifts aren't moving. So that's like the beauty of keeping a logbook. Is you can kind of
work out with a logbook?
Yeah. And I didn't always. I started that in my first part of my journey and then I kind of stopped. And then I was just like, no, this off season is really important. So I'm going to keep track of what I'm doing and not change things. So I have a bit of like that ADHD in the gym where it's like, that looks fun, I'll try this. But no, I'm going to,
right.
I plan out my workouts now. And so if I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, nothing's really changed, I should probably pull back a little bit. So coach had me doing like 4 days on, 3 days off.
Okay.
Although this is probably not the right thing to do, but I leave for a like 10 day long vacation next Wednesday.
Okay.
And I've told myself we're going to Sicily, and I've told myself that I'm not going to kill myself about trying to find a gym, and I'm not going to overstress about food. I'm going to make sure I get at least my 15K steps in, right?
Which you will when you're on vacation. Yeah, people always walk so much.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the food is way better than here in North America.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And so, I'm just going to eat
I've even heard like their pasta's healthier, like their bread and pastas.
It's just
pastas.
nothing's fortified. Everything here, because our soil has been so heavily degraded by digging it up, moving it around,
the same
building
soil
on it,
planting on the same soil all the time.
So like we don't have any
Food's
iodine,
growing,
so everyone's thyroids suck and blah blah blah.
I've been saying this for a long time. Our food's grown in nutrient deficient soil.
Depleted. They're just completely depleted.
Yeah.
And especially I find in this province too, like there's not a ton of like in Ontario, it's a much more fruitful land, right? There's a lot more fruits, vegetables, everything. Here, there's not, I've never driven, I'm not, again, going back to like what I'm not used to about here is like, you drive 20 minutes out of Kitchener and it's just farms.
Right.
Here, it's like everything's built on shale and rock.
Is.
So you can't dig deep enough to get any of the good stuff out. So there's not a lot of that. So I'm interested
there's
to see.
And like everything's a lot of like corn farms and stuff. Like
like corn's easy, right?
Corn,
and most of the time it's for animals.
Right.
And I'm interested to see what proper good food is.
Right.
I'm really eager for that.
PEI's got some of the best farming going. They have
But
some of the
again,
best
that's
soil
not in
the
this
world.
province, though, right?
Yeah, it's not in this province. They have iron sulfate in their soil, and that's why the soil's red over there. Have you been to PEI yet?
I've not been there.
You should check it out. It is super cool. I'd say go in the summer.
Yeah.
If you're going to go at any time.
I rarely leave my house in the winter.
Yeah, there's not much to do there in the winter at all. But in the summer, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I was over there for commercial diving, going to a Holland College over there.
Cool. Yeah.
And one thing I learned, I was like, why is the soil red? Why is the sand red? And it's because they have iron phosphate. So it's some of the most nutrient-rich soil almost in the world for farming. So they have like world-class farming. That's why a lot of like potatoes come from over there.
That's it, right?
But yeah, no, I think there is. It's because it's funny. I've been saying that a lot of farms grow in nutrient deficient soil, and then
then they have to spray it with something in order to provide any of the nutrients.
And then people are like, well, what does it matter what soil it's grown in? Well, that's the nutrients that the vegetables and that the fruits and that the stuff we're eating is gathering so that it can grow.
Yeah.
And it's like it even goes a step further. Like let's say like the meat we eat. It's not. It's what we're eating. What we ate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's about
what grew the cow.
Right. And that's where it goes back to the grass-fed kind of deal. So
grass-fed versus corn or grass-finished corn-fed, right?
Right. So then, how obviously nutrition is super important. What's some things that you monitor for nutrition? Are you monitoring calories heavily, or are you going like the macro? Because I've gone through different like fitness journeys. I'll do like 3 months where I'm just like everything's monitored.
Yeah,
everything's
track
monitored.
everything. Yeah.
Right. And I find some of the best times I've done it is when I'm focused on protein.
Yep.
And I'm not counting calories at all. I'm just like, okay, I'm like around 160. I want to get about 140 to 160 grams of protein.
Yeah.
When I'm like trying to maintain or build muscle.
Yeah.
So if I'm going hard and I'm like training for marathons and stuff like this, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm counting. So I'm counting the protein, and then I'm like, I want to get a little bit of fats. So like peanuts or like almonds or let's say avocados, and then I'm like some carbs. I love pasta. I love bread, but that's not the best option all the time. So I'll be like potatoes, rice, and maybe like some sourdough bread.
Yeah.
And then I try to get some vegetables in, and if not, I'll just do like a green shake.
Yeah.
Because vegetables are kind of boring.
Yes, they are. Yeah. It's funny to me when people are like, I'm tracking calories versus I'm tracking macros, because I mean, it all ends up being the same.
Okay, does it? Yeah.
Well, because, okay, so say someone's like, I can eat 2,000 calories. Cool. Well, what does 2,000 calories of cheese look like?
Right.
Could you eat 2,000 calories of cheese?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's better to think about it as like just breaking it up into your protein, carbs, and your fats, right? Easy enough. I would always.
You're gonna need a plumber if you eat 2,000 calories of cheese.
Oh my God. Yeah. I can't even imagine. Like, I feel like that's most people's dream, but I feel like it's super unrealistic. So, I mean, like, yeah, people are like, eat 2,000 calories, but like, how do I break that up? Like, it's like a follow-up question.
Right.
So I'd say always focus on protein. I think that's perfect. It keeps you satiated. It keeps you burning fat when you're not doing anything, right? Because it's going to help protein synthesis, which is the development of muscle. So I think a rule of thumb is just a pound 1 gram per pound of
So
body
that
weight.
is a good rule of thumb.
That's a good rule of thumb. Technically, it should be.
And then if you're looking to bulk, sorry, not bulk, I guess put on muscle. So like, let's say that I'm 160, but I want to be 180 or 170. Then I should be taking in more than 160 grams.
So there was a recent study done. I don't remember by who, but there's a gentleman who does a lot of these, puts up a lot of these studies, and 1.2 to 1.4. Beyond that's not really going to do you any good.
Okay.
So on the high end,
it's just being wasted at that point.
Yeah. On the high end, like you don't get any extra value or benefit from it.
Okay.
Like that's kind of where your body can handle that amount. So like and like, don't get me wrong, there are people who are consuming way more, and that might just work for them. It can't, there's no one perfect body and no one perfect system, right? So rule of thumb is technically it's a gram per lean pound of body mass.
Okay.
Not full pound, but it's easy to just for the most part, people had struggle getting in protein. I don't quite understand that. I love protein.
Yeah.
So it's easy for people to conceptualize and plan out 1 gram per pound. Technically, it's lean body mass, right? But it's so hard to check your body mass accurately, right? Like you've got your DEXA scan, your hydrostatic weighing, your bod pod, your calipers, right? There's a proper biopsy. Like there's no really convenient way to check it and get an accurate result. So I would say if you kind of look at yourself, like where you're holding it, how you're holding it, right? So like at my leanest, I took my bod. So I went all the way to Fredericton University, New Brunswick, Fredericton campus. They have a DEXA scan, which is probably like the 3rd most effective way of testing your body fat. I mean, it cost me $100, takes like 3 minutes for this test to happen. But you can go and you can book a test to get a proper assessment done.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I was about 6.4% body, which is disgusting. It's so gross. Please don't ever get that lean. And it's uncomfortable. It's not fun. And that was
Is it uncomfortable?
Yeah, super uncomfortable. Everything hurts.
Yeah.
Like I distinctly remember one of my, I think this was like,
that's like
either my,
like you're seeing like the fibers in the muscles at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like every time you're moving, kind of
like
deal.
Translucent. It's gross. I distinctly remember.
But it takes so much discipline to get there, though. Like it's such an accomplishment.
But
right?
that's that like putting aside instant gratification, right? It's for the people who can handle. I can put in the time and effort and discomfort now to get to that place. A lot of people can't even do that.
When you're going from like 10% body fat to like 6,
which 10% is quite lean for a female,
right?
Overly lean,
right?
Yeah.
So then, like, is that like what's that gap like? Like, is that like a 2-month journey?
That's a push,
right?
That's hard to get that,
right? Like every percentage at that point is going to be very difficult.
Like
that's where everything's measured. Everything,
everything.
Like, is that your water intake and everything?
No, like I tried.
Like is water intake something you can just kind of like keep flushing yourself out?
Yeah, like even as we speak now, I'm down like I should be consuming like at least a liter within now. So like I drink a ton of water.
How much water do you drink a day?
Probably close to 8.
8 liters?
Yeah. And then
8 liters.
And on some show leading up to show that week before show is probably like 12 to 14.
Wow.
But you're just expelling it, right? Like you're peeing all the time. But
okay.
Yeah. But
leading up to shows, even more water.
Yeah.
And is that just because your body kind of needs it to stay hydrated because your body's not carrying much water? So you're just trying to make sure like that
your body, so the loose science behind it is your body will expel whatever it's not needed.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm constantly drinking water, like the people who are like, I drink like a bottle a day. I'm like, I don't understand you.
Sometimes I can be that person where it's like a liter, but then also right now I'm on
half a liter.
Right. So like right now I'm on a cycle of like at least 4 liters per day. Yeah. At least 4 liters.
That I think is like should be a minimum for people.
And that is even like hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's hard for a lot of people.
That's crazy to me.
And then that just goes back to a lot of people walking around low energy, right? I don't feel good. I need to go to the doctor. And it's like, how much water are you drinking? I drink about probably, I don't know, like 1 of these a day.
Yeah.
Right.
And then like 4 coffees.
You're like half a liter of water.
Yeah.
Like, what are you eating? Like, I'll eat once a day. And it's normally like an egg and a cigarette. And then like I'm eating chips.
A Pop-Tart and a cigarette.
Right. And it's like, no, I don't think you need a doctor, man.
No.
I think you just need some good sleep, some exercise, and drink a ton of water.
Yeah.
Do that for a month and see how you feel.
That's it. Like, drink some water. And I mean, like the loose science behind that before a show is that I keep my water intake super duper high throughout the year. Okay. Like I'm in an off season, I'm drinking probably close to like, probably it's a little bit lower now.
That's shocking to hear, like even 8 liters a day.
Yeah. I can't imagine not. Like I just have a rotation of bottles.
Right.
And so the loose science is that you consume and that your body expects more water to come in. So it's happy to just keep expelling. Okay. And you're expelling water, that are intracellular, right? And extracellular. So your plasma, like you always have a certain amount of that, but it expects you to be constantly replenishing what you're expelling. Okay. And so by the time you hit just before show day, I'll go from like 14 liters to 8 liters to 1 liter. And then show day, I'll probably drink about 1 liter. and like sip it. But
because that's a dehydration thing. Just to have that.
It's dehydrating while hydrating, right? And like I said, it's a loose science, but it's especially like it's essentially your body is like, oh, she's gonna give me more. It's fine. Like we can just pee it out, right? And then you're ending up a little bit drier and harder on stage because your body's like, okay, like she'll give us more, like I promise, right? And then like after show, it's super important that you hop back on like getting your electrolytes in, you know, like right back to like 4 liters.
Do you wake up and do anything special in the morning to rehydrate after sleeping?
Just a big old glass of water. I do water, my greens. So I do.
Do you do greens first thing in the morning?
I do. I find it also like keeps me regular.
Yeah, and I find that's helped actually with some morning workouts too.
Yeah,
I find when I do that, I'm like, I have a bit more energy because I find I try to go through the first part of the day fasted.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I'm exhausted in the morning, especially if I didn't eat enough the day prior, that I'm super low energy for that first little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do my workouts without coffee because I want to wait at least like 90 minutes to get my coffee in the morning now. So during the week, I wake up, gym, but I've started doing greens in the morning, and I'm like, I have a bit more energy, and I find that energy is like purer throughout the day.
Yeah, I think it's just the hydration that's really helping you.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I think
there's another book, Own Your Day, Own Your Life. Have you read that one?
No, I heard of it.
Aubrey Marcus. Do you know him? He has a really good thing in his book that I've started to implement. It's probably one of the things that I've been most consistent on implementing is in the morning, waking up and having sea salt and lemon in my water.
Yeah, it's like an electrolyte balance, right? Yeah.
Right.
And like because you've gone 8 to 10, maybe 12 hours, right, since you've had something to drink.
Yeah.
It's really just a replenishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's a good digestion booster too. Right?
Yes,
like
exactly, because it gets your enzymes kind of all settled, especially with the lemon.
Like a tablespoon of like even just like a benefiber.
Okay.
Not the husk stuff, but like inulin, and just dump that out, knock it back. That's
I don't know what any of that is.
It's just fiber.
Okay.
You can literally buy it in like the Whole Foods section or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, not Metamucil, because Metamucil is like psyllium husk, and that can be too aggressive right away.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's a good way. It's just basically just not that I condone detoxes necessarily, but it's a natural way to like just get things going.
Well, it sounds like the amount of water you're drinking, that's like a natural detox every day.
I mean, I have a liver and a kidney, and it does a pretty good job of detoxing for me.
100%.
Right? When people are like, I need to go on a detox, I'm like, no, you just need to make sure your organs are properly working.
And then that goes back to what we were saying at first, where everybody's kind of looking for something like, how can I be healthier? I'll buy this detox kit of like this drink that I just
all
do.
It is gonna like just give them like liquid hot lava out the butt, right? Just because that's what it is. It's clearing you out, and that's what your bowels and your pancreas or your gallbladder and your liver and your kidney are naturally designed to do that.
Right. What's your thoughts on fasting?
I think it's good.
Let's say intermittent fasting, like not these like prolonged
if you
some
want
people do it like 4 or 5 days, that's probably got its benefits too. But
I think in terms of just allowing your digestion to chill out, right? If you're someone who's packing in, so like someone who's eating 6 meals a day, it might be a nice time to just let everything just kind of relax.
Yeah.
Right. And not have to like be constantly working.
Yep.
I think it's good for that.
And work on like cellular repair. Is that kind of real?
I don't know. I haven't looked too far into it. No. I kind of look at the superficial benefits of it, right? And I mean, if you're intermittent fasting, if you're someone who doesn't like to eat breakfast, cool.
Yeah, it's my favorite meal. I can eat breakfast all day. I can eat breakfast all day.
Get it? The first thing I want to do.
I'll breakfast for supper every day.
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is eat when I wake up. I'd rather do like a reverse intermittent fast and like stop eating at like 4 p.m. and just go to the next day.
I just love like all the like eggs, toast.
Yeah.
Like bacon. I just love, like, I can eat eggs all day. I can eat eggs all day.
I love eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eggs are superfood.
A lot of eggs.
Like how many eggs a day do you
eat? Between 8 and 16. But mostly whites.
8 and 16.
Yeah.
Just the whites?
Mostly whites.
I'm on like 4 or 5. Okay, 8 or 16. Cool. Well,
but I mean, that's like 30. That's like 30 grams of protein right there.
Are you counting like 7 grams of protein per egg kind of deal? Is that your math?
That's roughly it. Yeah.
Okay.
For like a large egg.
Yeah. And then is there a reason you're not doing the yolks? Are the yolks fine?
But because I kind of follow like a more macro base, I have my proteins, my carbs, and my fats.
Because the yolks has the fat, right?
Not that it's bad fat. I just don't need 8 yolks.
I don't need 8 yolks. Okay. Okay, cool. Cool.
And then I choose to do whole eggs rather than the liquid. A, because it's cheaper. Mm-hmm. B, I don't think it's just liquid egg whites. I have a super sensitive system. Mm-hmm. Like, I've always battled with like IBS and everything. And so
Okay.
too much of the liquid gives me like gut rot. So I can process the whole egg better
You
than
do
the
dairy?
whites.
Are you lactose intolerant at all?
No, it honestly, it depends.
Yeah. And
Depends
then you
on
said
the way the wind's blowing.
you said eating the because I can't really do milk anymore. I can't do like milk.
Yeah, I
which,
choose-
It's
I
hilarious
choose
because
an-
I grew up just drinking milk nonstop.
which is so gross.
I know. The more I think about it, it's
Right?
weird.
Like it was meant to make a baby into a 800-pound
I'm just
animal,
like,
and we're
I'm
just the
throwing
only
like
ones-
sugar
Yes.
cereal
Yeah.
into this like this liquid, like coming in after a really hot day,
Such an
sweating,
80s, 90s
replenishing with
problem.
milk,
Yeah.
right? Just because it was like on TV, it'll make your bones strong. Which I think that was just propaganda.
That
was,
absolutely was. The dairy
it's
farmers are the biggest
just like the sugar
mafia.
just like the sugar craze kind of deal, where like they were getting like doctors paid to promote sugar, saying it's healthy for you back in like what the 60s or 70s
Yes.
or whatever. And then this stuff comes out, you're like, oh, that was all wrong
Well,
too.
that was
And then the
completely wrong.
food chart, how the food chart's pretty well completely backwards.
Oh, I
where
hate
it was
that.
like,
It's
I mean,
all
like
wheat
I
and
thought
dairy.
I thought pasta and bread were like a key ingredient of like
it's
a
because
healthy,
the wheat
a healthy
farmers and the
base.
dairy farmers of Ontario or Canada, whatever it is, they're like, yes.
Alyssa, if there's anything you want to say, to everybody, maybe plug your coaching program or something.
Yeah, I mean,
you can talk about that a little bit.
I was
and-
kind of, toying in my head of throwing out some sort of like promo, right, to help you out, help me out. So I would say for the first 3 people, first person who likes and shares and follows this particular podcast, I'll do 50% off a year paid in full of training and nutrition with me.
Holy smokes.
Second person will do 40% off. Third person will do 30% off.
Okay. Well,
So
that's
you've
wicked.
got to like the page, like the podcast, follow the page, follow the podcast.
and also follow you too.
Yeah.
And what is that going to include for them real quick?
That's going to include, you get me, okay? So that's nutrition and training customized to you and your goals.
Nutrition and training too. Nutrition.
Yeah. So
That's huge.
This is
You spend a lot of time getting stuff like that dialed in.
yeah, I mean like
We're
I've got
talking meal plans?
Yeah, proper meal plans or macros if you choose. I mean, I've studied holistic nutrition. I work for a remote company doing this. I have a BA in kinesiology. I've been coaching people since 2013. So, I mean, I've got a bit of an experience,
A bit.
modestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got bi-weekly check-ins. It's really whatever suits the person. I try to make this as doable as possible.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's nobody more qualified to help people get their fitness dialed in and achieve the goals that they want.
Yeah, I like to think so. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. This
Yeah.
is amazing. And we can do this again anytime
Absolutely.
too. As long as you're
20
not
minutes away.
leaving New Brunswick anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Cool.